Transportation Committee is called to order. Let's do roll call.
Okay, committee member France, absent. Hodges,
Present.
Horn, Krieger,
Present.
Green,
Present.
Blackerby,
Present.
and Chair Rodriguez.
Present. Are there any changes to the agenda before we start?
Nope.
Do we have any public comment at this time?
Madam Chair, I just would like to make one little announcement. That we have recently been hearing about shared scooters coming to Santa Barbara, which if you've been following about this in the media, it's actually pretty proliferous. Santa Monica, Austin, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. And so we are developing an emergency ordinance that will be at City Council on June 19th. And just to give you, and we can't really discuss it, it's not on the agenda, but just as an announcement format, what that looks like, what that will look like roughly is a limitation on the number of scooters that can be in the city. It'll be a pilot program we're recommending to council with a maximum of 2 vendors. And there's all sorts of qualifications that they will need to submit and apply to as a part of a request for proposal from the city. We're going to try to move fast because we do feel like there is a benefit. It doesn't appear to be that their scooters are used by cyclists. It's kind of an everybody wants to use a scooter, much more popular than the bike share. And so some of the challenges that other cities are experiencing are abandoning of the scooters within a pedestrian way, which can cause hazards for pedestrians, tripping over them, particularly the people that are maybe have accessible disabilities. So we're looking to regulate them. We're doing that in fast order. We have heard that there are some companies that have leased space in the city, so and perhaps employed people locally. So we could actually see an influx even this weekend. Don't know if that'll happen. And we're also ready with an ordinance for a fee an impounding fee, so that we can actually deal with that pretty quickly.
Wow.
So I just it's kind of going fast. We just are finding out, this is all happening in the last 2 weeks. Actually, the Public Works Director, Rebecca Bjork, has taken it upon herself to draft the ordinance. So it's that fast, that quick, that agile. And again, that'll be on council for June 19th. So if you want to follow that, that's the date we'll have the discussion at City Council.
Thank you.
We'll try to keep you posted.
A quick question on that. You mentioned dockless scooters, but will bikes be included under the ordinance as well?
Yes, it's going to be called Shared Mobility Services.
Cool. Thank you.
Is that a potential future agenda item for us?
It's a really good question. It's not necessarily in the purview. You govern mainly the circulation element and the bike plan and the pedestrian master plan. So general plan related things, recommending the consistency with the plans, and then making recommendations to City Council. I'm happy to bring back status reports and let you know what's going on. I think it's important just from a standpoint of having more city official type folks just understanding what the process is, so we can get the word out and understand what the city's doing and really build the trust and high regard of the team, which is really what we want to do, be responsible.
She's just not pushing it. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and they're also implementing an ordinance.
That's quick response on the part of
Okay, we've just been joined by committee member Susan Horn, for the record. And let's move on to the approval of the minutes from the February meeting. Yes.
I noticed that today's agenda says a quorum was present, but the minutes themselves reflect a couple of absences.
Well, quorum does not mean everyone is there. It just means enough members are there.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, yeah,
I stand corrected.
that's all right. Someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to improve the minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Second? Howard seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm
Aye.
abstaining because I wasn't there.
Very good. Well, that's done. Well, let's move on to our brand-new quarterly MTD waterfront presentation.
Yeah, so we have Steve Moss here from MTD, and this was a recommendation from the committee to move to quarterly reports. So we're in that transition, and maybe Steve, you could mention a little bit about that.
Yes. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. So, yeah, at the request of, I understand, this committee and of city staff, your next report that you see from us regarding the shuttles will be a quarterly report covering the period April, May, and June. There'll also be an annual report, as you've seen in the past. We'll continue to provide that separately from the quarterly reports. It's in a different format. So, yeah, we think, we're pleased with the change as well, as I understand all, or at least most, or maybe all of you are as well. So we think that'll be an improvement. And with that, I'm happy to answer any, or attempt to answer at least any questions that you may have about the last three monthly reports that you have in front of you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering how much longer the thank you, old fleet will be in utilization, because it doesn't show up on the bus tracker or any of your automated systems.
It's a great question. You may have noticed, some of you at least, that you are starting to see the new shuttles in service and mixed in with the old ones. Our hope is that by the end of summer, that switchover will be completed. That's not a certainty at this point. We're still working with the manufacturer of the new shuttles to address just last remaining issues, but that's our hope. Mm-hmm.
Steve, do you have any trends that you'd like to point out to us?
Sure. As you probably have noticed, the ridership on the shuttles through March is down somewhat from the previous year. Some of that there's, I think, good explanations for. For example, the fact that beginning with this fiscal year, you may recall in our agreement with the city, we eliminated the first hour of service on the State Street portion that used to start at 9. It now starts at 10, the same as the waterfront service always has. And in our analysis prior to making the decision to eliminate that, we found that on average maybe 40 people were riding that hour of service. So with the 9 months under consideration, 272 days, that could be approaching 11,000 riders due to that change. As you may know too, the number of cruise ship visits is down this year from the previous year, and I don't have a number to attach to that, but we do know that there's obviously additional ridership from cruise ships. So anytime there's a decrease in the number of cruise ship visits, that affects ridership on the shuttles. Of course, the two tragedies that we had, the fire and the debris flow, affected downtown visitors, and thus the cruise ship. The shuttle ridership as well. And I know the city's transit occupancy tax, which is sort of operates as a surrogate for visitors, is somewhat down year over. From a table I just looked at year to date, it's down by like 2%. So not hugely significant, but still does seem to suggest that there are overall fewer visitors to the city this year than there were in the previous year. So all of those factors, we think, account for a substantial portion of the decrease in ridership. We're still continue to analyze reasons for, further reasons for decreases. And in fact, in March and in April, which you don't have in front of you, we saw fairly substantial decreases, and we're really looking into that and trying to determine what other factors beyond what I've mentioned might account for that, but we don't have answers for you yet for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions?
I was just gonna comment that the passengers increased for February with the revenue hours down. I thought that was really
Yeah.
interesting.
I did neglect to mention that there was a nice increase in February, and we were hopeful at that point, but then March and April saw a reverse.
How are potential riders alerted to the availability?
I'm sorry.
How are potential riders alerted to the availability of the shuttles?
We don't currently have a particularly targeted shuttle marketing campaign. That's certainly something we can look into doing in future.
I had a question about this weekend's going to be pretty warm, and I know the new shuttles have removable windows, but I haven't seen them removed. Is there an issue with those? I know they're not plexiglass; they're actually glass. They're a little bit heavier.
I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I do know that there is a lot more involved taking the windows out and putting them in those shuttles than it is in the old shuttles. That can be done. Another factor is the new shuttles have air conditioning, and we might have, which the old ones didn't, and we might have, people actually preferring them in. I think we'll see how that plays out. But I know the intent, the hope of the city and of MTD is to be able to have the windows to be able to come out and go in as needed, and we're working towards that.
And it's actually my understanding that they will be removed shortly. There's one, number 35 has its windows out, but the plan is to remove them very soon.
Excellent.
Well, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it,
welcome.
and we like seeing you quarterly.
Howard has one more.
Sure, go ahead.
You mentioned in each of the reports that the route is featured in the train information. I believe there is a fare exchange process with the train. Does that apply also to the shuttles?
Yes, anyone who has a valid Amtrak pass can ride our shuttles for free, and we have an agreement with LOSAN, the agency that manages the Amtrak service, and they pay us the fare. So, yeah, it's free for anyone with a valid Amtrak ticket. Good point, and thank you for mentioning that. I should always mention that at these meetings.
Yeah.
And as a follow-up question to that, is there a way of connecting the new commuter train to the shuttles themselves as a way of getting people to work?
Well, we don't operate the shuttles that early in the day, so it would require quite an investment of funds to extend it to that early morning hour. But, it's something we can look at.
But there is connecting service, of course,
Right,
to
right.
the train. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, just so you.
I'm just thinking as an additional.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome.
We like seeing you quarterly. Are we, oh, I thought we were done. Okay, go ahead.
One more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Can you maybe give us a little overview of how they trained the the morning and evening commute train
Well,
and the connecting service?
sure. I mean, I don't have any statistics on that with me because I wasn't prepared for that, but I know a little bit about it. We're having very good ridership on we have 3 routes. Let me back up a little bit. We have one serving the Santa Barbara depot and 2 serving the Goleta station, one going west down Hollister and the other going east down Hollister. The West Goleta route is doing very well. That's our highest ridership. No surprise with all the high-tech employers out that way. The Santa Barbara route is next, doing quite well. The Goleta East route is our least used currently, but there's still a lot of room to grow as the train service, we hope, continues to increase ridership. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions?
No, thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
We'll move along. Thanks, and we do appreciate seeing you quarterly to
Thank you.
check in.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, I think we're ready for the staff report on the East Cabrillo Boulevard improvement, and I do have one request form, and that person will come after, is that correct?
Yeah, usually what we do is we do the presentation and then commonly have committee member questions and then do the public comment and then deliberate.
Thank
This,
you.
this item is going to be presented by Daniel Gullett, who runs the transportation planning section for our division. And he's going to say all this, but just for your entry, the thing to be paying attention for is that this item is going to be going to council. So it's a little different for you. You're actually recommending that this be approved at council. And it's a little different because it's a variation from what the bicycle master plan says. So we want to go to council to get their blessing on this item. Take it away, Dan.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Rodriguez, committee members. So this project implements a project in the bicycle master plan. So the bicycle master plan describes improvements on Cabrillo Boulevard east of Milpas, so between Milpas and Los Patos, to accommodate an additional bike lane. So to do so, the bicycle master plan has one westbound travel lane removed. And as Rob mentioned, we're here tonight to describe changes to this plan. The main driver for the changes is application of our Vision Zero policy. This aerial shows the extent of the project. Here's Milpas and Los Patos. And you may recall back in November, I was here describing the improvements planned for pedestrian, bicycle, and circulation at Los Patos and under the Union Pacific Railroad Bridge. This project was actually approved by Planning Commission May 17th. So this would be east of what we're describing today. This will provide an important regional connection for active transportation through the freeway to Coast Village Road and down to Channel Drive. So again, this is Los Patos, and it would be the western extent of this restripe project. So your committee's seen Vision Zero a couple of times. You reviewed the outline, then a draft plan. Vision Zero was adopted by City Council in October 2016. It was subsequent to the Bicycle Master Plan. So with all of these restripe projects and applications of the Bicycle Master Plan, we're looking at collision history. We're looking to make these facilities safer. So the draft plan included 15 priority corridors where we're seeing concentrations of collisions. At Cabrillo Boulevard's one of those 15. So this section is on that list. With collision history, it shows many solo vehicle collisions through this stretch. So that implies that they're traveling at unsafe speeds. There's also a motorcycle fatality early last year related to a U-turn that took place from the parallel parking adjacent to the beach volleyball courts. So this concept design is to address those identified safety issues with Vision Zero that would improve safety for all users. Add the new bike lanes on Cabrillo consistent with Bicycle Master Plan. And it has the added benefit of adding additional beach access parking, the secondary benefit that follows with the safety improvements. So the first element is buffer bike lanes. So buffer bike lanes weren't included in the BMP. The BMP points to best practices. So as part of best practices, buffer bike lanes are in there. It says where appropriate, considering the context. You've seen these in other restriping projects on Bass Street, Shoreline Drive, enhances safety for bicycling, provides additional distance for bicyclists from traffic and parking, increasing comfort for bicyclists, and it ends up appealing to a wider cross-section of bicyclists. The other aspect of this change project is a change to the parking. So this is an image looking west on Cabrillo. This is the channel. This is the parking used for East Beach volleyball players. The fence along the street. So what this proposal includes is something that we don't have in the city of Santa Barbara. We do have some local examples, reverse angle parking. The closest example is downtown Ventura, down from City Hall on the hill. There's reverse angle parking. This is used fairly widely across the United States, not much regionally. It's being considered by the city of Goleta for Hollister Avenue. Currently, there are several benefits to reverse angle parking. It increases driver visibility. It makes it safer for when drivers exit the parking space. It defines the parking space so you know where the parking space is. It improves safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. It results in fewer collisions. At this particular location, there's better loading and unloading for beach activities. Your trunk and your doors are facing toward the beach. You're not having to be out in the travel lane. And this is a rare opportunity to increase beach parking. Our municipal code says you can't add any parking on the channel side of Cabrillo Boulevard. So this is one of those very few opportunities to increase beach parking, and this would increase beach parking by more than 50% and include disabled parking, which we don't have right now. This is a sketch by our esteemed traffic engineer, Derek Bailey. So this shows the orientation of the parking, the buffered bike lane for westbound. And I have a short video that the city of Carlsbad did describing reverse angle parking.
Reverse angle parking allows for more parking spaces than traditional parallel parking spots. And since all of the doors open away from oncoming traffic, it's safer for loading and unloading. Reverse angle parking is fairly new to North County, so here are some simple instructions to get you started in 3 easy steps. First, you'll need to find an available parking space and turn on your signal to let others know where you intend to park. Next, pull past the space and stop. Finally, put your car into reverse and back into the space using your rearview mirrors to see the parking lanes. That's it. When it's time for you to go, it's easy to merge into traffic since your car is already facing the street, and it's also easier to see cyclists and pedestrians. That's it. Now you're ready to go.
So the project maybe wheel stops for the reverse angle parking. It's striping for the most part. The one other change is the Cabrillo Niños Drive intersection. So it's currently signalized. This proposal includes conversion of that intersection to an all-way stop. So this would allow a safer transition from the merge to 2 eastbound lanes. The overall delay of this change is expected to be comparable of what it is now. So this is it's the entrance to the East Beach parking lot also. So this is the proposed configuration. So the left turn lanes would be removed. These would be through lanes. You can turn left onto Niños and into the beach parking lot when it's your turn. And safety benefit for pedestrians with this are these refuges between the travel lanes. And there's also there's small queuing area in the beach parking lot, so it can be an awkward wait, and this would alleviate some queuing issues in the parking lot for beachgoers exiting the parking lot. So we are asking your committee to review and comment on this concept, and we recommend that you recommend City Council approval of this concept design. So that concludes my comments, and we're available for questions.
Madam Chair, just one thing that I'll add, just to make sure it's perfectly clear. In the main element that's changing from the bike plan that's really different is that in the bike plan, it was the removal of one westbound lane. There's 4 lanes on Cabrillo right now. And this plan requires one westbound and one eastbound removal to get all the safety attributes. The benefit is there is a secondary benefit of the additional parking at the beach, which I'm sure many volleyball players will appreciate. But the drive of the program is taking what is the bicycle master plan proposal and bringing it up to a level of safety that's required by our new Vision Zero policy. We don't want to see the repeated collisions and many, many close calls that are happening along the beach as people are making U-turns from the beach. We don't think we can prohibit them from doing it, and this particular angling really facilitates and makes it much more safe to do so. So just to make sure we're clear, the major difference is the elimination of one eastbound lane. And then I know Derek is also here and can answer questions along with Mr. Gullah, but we have analyzed this for capacity, and there is no capacity issue with the removal of 2 of the travel lanes.
And to illustrate that, this shows where it's 1 lane in each direction. It's east of Sycamore Creek Bridge. It's where you have that condition between there and Los Patos.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be several questions, so go ahead, Susan.
I didn't actually realize until I saw the animation that people are going to go past the point and back in. I've never seen that anywhere. And it surprised me so much, and so I'm wondering how it works, that you're not, is there a place, enough room for people to pull over before they back in? Or are they going to be hitting other traffic or bikes? Or, I mean, I don't understand. I just don't have a picture of it yet.
Right. Madam Chair, Committee Member Horn, so you have a similar condition right now with the parallel parking, where if you're not the first one there, you are going in front of the parking space and backing into the parking space. It is we are anticipating larger vehicles too, so there will be more buffer area, but there you would be pulling across the bike lane at that position and backing up across the bike lane.
Okay.
Hillary?
So I actually had the first thought, and I was like, wait, cars do that already.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. So I guess, and the good news is it's easier and safer to pull out, right? Parallel parking is a little dicier, especially if you're on a bike. Car just comes out of nowhere. You at least can keep an eye. One question I'm curious, I've seen it in Ventura, but I haven't, studied it to see how it all moves. But what I'm curious about is for people who are heading in the opposite direction, so on the other side near the refuge, you might think, hey, look at all those parking spaces that I can just pull into. I'm wondering if there's signage or what there would be to deter that.
Yes, we have talked about signage along the parking and getting public information out there. We do share that concern. It would be illegal to do that, so part of it's enforcement and getting enforcement out there and making sure the behavior is established. So I think what we see for this parking area is repeat users. So I think people will get it. People will see the cars parked correctly and do that, but it will it will take some learning.
Yeah, and I would encourage staff to reach out to places like Carlsbad or places that use it where it's like they've obviously had to contend with this question, so no need to reinvent the wheel on that. My other question is on Nino. So I know it was a four-way stop, and it was mentioned in the staff report for a time because the mast arm was being changed. So we just put a nice new stoplight there. Is there possibility of use of that shiny new mast arm somewhere else, or is it just kind of a one-off thing, or what's the story?
Derek Bailey, our traffic engineer, will be happy to answer.
Good evening. Committee Member Blackerby. Probably not is the answer. I don't know that we have a similarly lengthed mast arm anywhere else in the city. Mast arms aren't incredibly expensive. It was only about I want to say about a $1,500 mast arm. As you remembered, the intersection, I think it was about 2 years ago, we had to make it an all-way stop for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
The eastbound mast arm, when we were doing preventative maintenance on the intersection, we found significant corrosion in the mast arm, and we were worried that it could fall at any second and injure somebody, so we had to remove it, and thus the all-way stop. But it took about 6 months to come in. They're kind of a specialty item. They come from Oklahoma, made to order. But it was really interesting. During that time, there was no congestion. The people on the side streets actually had and the left turners from Cabrillo on to Ninos had a much shorter wait because they just pull up, they wait for a gap, they go. Whereas with the traffic signal, the way it operates right now is it takes a really long time to cycle around through all the different movements. And especially if you're on a side street or you're a pedestrian, it's a long wait. And so we, as we started thinking about this project and how to transition from the 2 lanes going eastbound safely to 1 lane, it just seemed like doing it from a stopped condition rather than the potential for somebody going quickly through that intersection on a green light just seemed like a much safer thing to do, with the added benefit of better beach access for residents in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that light makes it, if you're cutting it close on catching the Airbus in that Hyatt parking lot,
Right.
you better hope that light turns, and it often takes a while. So yeah, I appreciate it. I was just curious about the mast arm thing since you mentioned it was a brand new one. But and then my other question for Mr. Gullett is timeline-wise on this. How does it all match up with the Los Patos project, or does it?
The Los Patos project isn't funded.
Right.
So that is, yes, that project is closely related to the HOV project. And an aspect of that project is actually required mitigation for the HOV project. So the short answer is we don't know.
So, but for this piece, what would the timeline be?
For this restripe this fall.
Great.
I'm going to follow because I want to comment on this. I find it amazing that to be taking out a light. I don't think I've heard of that in 6 years. It just, I don't, it sounds like the right idea, but I'm just kind of, wow, such an unusual way to go backwards towards stoplight. And on that same question, at the stop signs, let's say, if it's just stop signs again, can we use any of the blinking light type system that we're using, like on Milpas? I know we talked last meeting about how that isn't really an inexpensive thing, but I'm just wondering, a lot of tourist traffic across those crosswalks.
Chair Rodriguez, the flashing lights, the Milpa style ones, there's even some just half a block down at Corona Del Mar and Cabrillo. Because they're yellow lights, they're actually warning lights, so they're to alert drivers that there's somebody there that they need to yield to. They're not compatible with stop signs. So the the reason to use something like that is to draw drivers' awareness that they need to stop. So being Cabrillo and being a beautiful roadway, we want to minimize flashing lights where possible. They are very effective at the crosswalks, but they do sit dark most of the time. So our idea is to actually have, if you look up on the screen there, if I can, in the middle, this little striped median, we'll probably put some the bots dots around there. We'll have a center-mounted stop sign as well, so it's very visible from the distance as opposed to having just one off to the side of a very wide road. Kind of the next step up from that would be you can get LED borders around the stop signs if drivers just aren't recognizing the need to stop. But we've never had need to do anything like that in the city. We find that if drivers don't stop, it's usually not because they don't see the stop sign. It's more of a compliance issue.
Yeah.
So in short, I think the center-mounted stop signs would be very effective in communicating the stop condition.
Yeah, I see. As soon as you pointed it out, I realized the different needs. Okay, but I appreciate that.
Continuing on that intersection, it seems to me that going back to the flashing four-way red would be better than trying to rely just on stop signs. And if you did that, then you also have the option of doing something that Goleta has done right by the senior center on Hollister, where their crosswalk there is a solid red, not a flashing yellow. Now it starts, I think, as a flashing yellow and then goes to red, but I'm not sure the sequence there. But it would seem like one or the other of those two crosswalks crossing ought to have some protection for pedestrians, and it would seem to be fairly simple to do at this point.
Committee Member Green, that's a really good point. The application in Goleta is a little bit different because it is a crosswalk, and it doesn't provide any control for side street traffic. But what you mentioned about leaving the lights flashing red, that's actually something that's a really good idea, and we would do if we do move forward with this project, just to supplement the stop signs, maybe for the first month or two, just to get people used to stopping. But again, if we leave it like that, when we've got this flashing light condition on Cabrillo, that I think ultimately people would appreciate if we didn't have that on there. And I think once people get used to the stop signs, I think it'll be fine, and they won't be necessary.
But flashing red is the same as a stop sign.
It is, yep. So the flashing red and the stop signs can be used together because they mean the same thing.
I'm still thinking of the pedestrian, and why not allow for activation on each side and turn it to solid red? Or, 30 seconds or whatever is required.
I understand what you're saying. There is no such change of control in an always stop to an all red, like what you're saying. We have to follow a traffic manual that defines all the different ways that we can operate traffic control devices, and that's not one of them. I understand what you're saying. To further enhance pedestrian visibility, we will be painting high visibility crosswalks across Cabrillo. As Dan mentioned, the center area will be used as a refuge. But to go to an all red traffic signal would actually conflict with an all-way stop. They mean two different things.
I'm not in favor of the hexagonal stop signs at all. I would depend just on I would depend on the existing signal apparatus, and since the existing signal apparatus has a yellow lens in it, then it seems to me that if it's actuated by a pedestrian, then you could go to solid yellow for 5 or 6 or whatever seconds, and then go to the solid red. And that would, I believe, comply with the intent, as I understand the traffic manual.
It wouldn't. There is no hybrid model of traffic signal operations with flashing red, always stop operations. There's really just one or the other.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. It goes from a single lane eastbound to 2 lanes at the stop sign there at Ninos, and then it goes from a single lane westbound to 2, and then continues to 2. Do I see that correctly?
Yes.
And what is the reason for dividing it into 2 from a single lane, going eastbound, for example?
Do you have that? Okay. Committee Member Hodges, as far as the need for 2 lanes in each direction on Cabrillo at the stop sign itself, it's for capacity. We would create quite a bit of congestion there if it was just 1 lane in each direction. As far as looking at the left-hand side of the screen there with 1 lane, I'm just going to pan through, to this block here. There's a few different ways we can do this in order to meet the intent of the bicycle master plan. This is Milpas intersection here on the left. This is Corona del Mar. I'm sorry, got my intersections mixed up. On the south side is the East Beach parking lot on the other side of the pavilion. The bicycle master plan calls for bike lanes in this block. So the bike lanes that Dan described going parallel to the bird refuge would go all the way to this intersection. And the reason this intersection is important from a connectivity perspective is for westbound. Just off the left-hand side of the screen is actually where the westbound bike lane begins right now. So if we can get that bike lane all the way to Milpas Street, then we have a continuous bike lane along Cabrillo throughout the limit of the city. As far as eastbound goes, there is no bike lane eastbound at all on Cabrillo right now. And we're proposing this is where it should start, at Milpas. It seems like a logical place to start one just because that's where the Beachway ends on the south side. And
it's a Sharrow before that?
Yes, yeah. And this block is not wide enough to accommodate all the traffic lanes that are there right now and have bike lanes. So by the time we get to Corona del Mar with its left turn lane, we have to either drop an eastbound lane, which we're showing in this sketch, or a westbound lane. That's something we can work out in design and play with the operations as to which one works better. As far as what we're showing here in this sketch, as traffic is going east through the Milpas intersection, it would taper into 1 lane, where it would stay 1 lane until it got to Ninos, where it would flare open to 2 temporarily just for the stop sign, and then back down to 1. Alternately, we could go back to that intersection right there. And in this area right here, just west of the intersection, we would have to bring those 2 westbound lanes together into 1 and carry that all the way to Milpas in order to get that room for the continuous bike lanes. One side or the other has to be 1 lane in front of the pavilion.
And the bike lane itself will have a striped buffer zone next to it?
We haven't worked that out yet, preferably. We don't know if there's quite enough room through this section, but it's definitely our preference to incorporate that into our designs where possible.
Great. Thank you.
Susan?
This is a great project. I really love it. And it seems like it's one of the less expensive ones because it's so much striping and not so much infrastructure changes. Yeah, you're nodding. So I'm just, maybe I missed it, but what's the source of funding?
Committee Member Horn, this section of Cabrillo is going to be slurry sealed pavement maintenance this fall. It's a Measure C project. So this fall, the city is going to be doing a pretty extensive pavement maintenance effort, and this street is one of them. So when the slurry happens, we have a blank slate to work with. So if we want to change the striping configuration when these pavement maintenance efforts happen, that's the ideal time. So as far as the striping goes, there's really no extra cost. Mr. Gollett mentioned we'll likely need parking bumpers to back up to. We're also thinking maybe some of the plastic vertical delineators along each stripe, so as people are backing up, they have something to guide themselves. We haven't quite worked that out yet, but those features are probably the only features above and beyond the work that's already going to be happening.
Go ahead, Howard. I do have a couple questions when you're done.
I found the initial packet we got a little confusing with these diagrams, partly because they were horizontal versus everything else being portrait, and seeing it on the screen altogether. But even the sequence here is not the same sequence, west to east or east to west. This is, scattered around, and I find it a little disconcerting. I think it would be helpful if you had at least one kind of positioning that showed the 4-segment detail, and in that one, indicate number of lanes, eastbound, westbound bike lane size, buffered or not. It looks like there's only one block of buffered bike lane. Is that right?
Committee Member Green, thank you for the feedback, and we'll definitely do a better job next time with that. We definitely know we can get buffered bike lanes adjacent to the bird refuge. So that section between Los Patos to Niños, that's a pretty long stretch. We can get buffered bike lanes on the north side of the road there, definitely. I believe it is.
Do you have the documents that?
Yeah, and I
Not ones you printed out yourself.
I've brought the sketch up on the screen where the reverse angle parking section is, and I know, I apologize, it's not very obvious, but this is supposed to be a buffer between the travel lane and the bike lane. We haven't spent a lot of time engineering this yet. We really want to hear from the community before we go forward. It is going to be quite an effort for us to put in time to really dial in all the design. So at this point, we're working with hand sketches and really just trying to get feedback on this. So I apologize, the sketches are a little crude.
When might it be scheduled to go to council?
We're looking at August for that date. It can happen as probably as late as September. As Mr. Bailey mentioned, we are going to do this in the fall. Yeah. So it's in preparation for a contract. And just to echo what Mr. Bailey said, we're trying to hurry. The slurry seals projects are coming with Measure C, and we're not slowing down for them. So I would anticipate more of these meetings where we're saying, hey, we got this great idea, slurry seals coming to town really quick. What do you think? Because of the change in Cabrillo Boulevard, it's a big deal. It was a big deal for the bicycle master plan to drop that westbound lane, and so we do believe that we need council's direction on this, and so we do have a bit of a process and some engineering to get through, and appreciate your patience in looking at hand sketches, which I'm always wowed by Mr. Bailey's hand sketches. But I understand that they are what they are.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Howard. My copy I got yesterday is a little bit different formatted than yours, so I was confused. Sorry about that. May I ask a question now?
Okay. The chair.
The second. Dan, you mentioned early in your talk a single vehicle collision. I don't understand that term. So what does that mean? I mean, if it's a collision, how can it be with one car?
Okay. Chair Rodriguez, I'll take a stab at that one. It just means a single vehicle crashing into something.
Okay.
And the real pattern of collisions that we've found along Cabrillo is eastbound, and they're not negotiating that first turn. So they're blasting right through and smashing into the nice stone wall that surrounds the Clark estate. It's happening more than you think, and we think that going down to one lane is going to be, and just introducing some side friction, just making it feel less like a wide open speedway style street, is a way to just introduce some control into the way people are driving through this area.
Got it. I wasn't thinking of hitting stuff, just other cars.
Stuff, yes.
And then on that same line, I wasn't clear on, I think you said you're not allowed to increase parking because it's in the coastal zone. Is it that you get the same number of feet, but if you can pack more cars in, lucky you?
So the municipal code and our coastal policies say don't build any more parking on the channel side of Cabrillo Boulevard. So
Okay.
the parking lots we have are all we're going to get. They can be replaced if they're demolished, but no additional supply can be added.
Okay, so, but you're adding parking spaces by changing the way,
On Cabrillo Boulevard, so not on the channel side of Cabrillo Boulevard, but on the street.
okay, that's what I didn't catch.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks
that
for
was, I
clarifying.
just wondered how you could wave your magic wand and get more parking when you just said you couldn't get more parking. I didn't hear it completely. Okay, any more questions before we have some public comment and then discussion? Okay. Barry Remus? And this is just on item 4, and you get to come back.
Well, good evening, Madam Chair and Commission members. My name is Barry Remus, and I'm representing COAST, the Coalition for Sustainable Transportation. And I do have to say that we are elated and quite delighted by this turn of events here. We've also have been conferring with Mr. Bailey on some of these items. We're thrilled to see that Vision Zero is playing a major role in the decision of that staff has decided to augment the bicycle master plan update in leaps and bounds, I'll have to say. But this is a big pill to swallow. Even for me speaking on behalf of Coast, and we're going to admit that. What we also want to recommend is that this not be seen merely as a road diet to increase safety for bikes and pedestrians. Again, the tenets of Vision Zero is that we increase safety for all road users. And as you've seen from what Mr. Gullett has mentioned, the previous collision history isn't as much about pedestrians and bicyclists, but it's motor vehicles. It's motorcycles being hit by a U-turn car. And so if it weren't for first of all, again, I'm amazed that I really want to see, I'm going to be in attendance at City Council to see this go before them, because there's been questions asked about the initial Bike Master Plan project about taking one lane out. And now we're going to think about taking 2 out. That's a big pill to swallow. However, if it weren't for the Los Patos roundabouts that are going in, that are going to help increase the flow of traffic through that corridor, this would be something that really, I think, would be something that people be concerned about. However, because of that project eventually going into place, this traffic flow and the capacity, and if we have full faith in Mr. Bailey's analyses to predict that this corridor will still be able to handle that capacity. And even with the Niños intersection, we see this as really a big win-win for the city. Not only for pedestrians and bicyclists, but also for motor vehicle as well, motor vehicle operators. So COAST is in full support of this. I've heard from our friends at the Bicycle Coalition that they're in favor of this as well, to be able to put in to finally be able to see bicycle lanes protected and buffered bicycle lanes throughout this corridor, to be able to enhance that throughway so that not just the hardcore bicyclists can take the Class 2 bike path. And it opens it up in that respect for more people to be able to opt for that is a great thing. So we really wholeheartedly encourage you to support this, because I think that the City Council is going to need to hear that support, because they're going to, I'm sure, have questions about it, and we appreciate your pushing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I wasn't on the mic. Okay, now we can have some discussion, or does anyone want to make a motion, and then we'll see if we like it.
I'd move that the committee recommend approval of this project to council.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I wanted to provide a few comments. So first of all, I just wanted to congratulate staff on an incredibly well thought through project. You've clearly thought about how all the pieces connect together, and I'm really impressed with your application of the Vision Zero plan at the project level, and that you thoughtfully thought through how to add that to the tenets of the bicycle master plan as well. So kudos, very nicely done. I would certainly echo that. I agree this is an excellent project, and I'm excited to see it move through. And I guess the last thing I would add, just to allay any of my fellow committee members' concerns or others out in the public, I have seen and experienced angled back-in parking many, many times other places, and it's a beautiful thing. It actually it takes a little while to adjust to, but once you do, it is much safer, much faster, and much more convenient. So,
Terrific.
thanks.
I think the presentation was very clear. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question that perhaps I should have said earlier, but right now, below the Clark Mansion, I believe it's 2 lanes each way for most of the way toward 101. And it's going to, this makes it look like it's going to continue out of the Los Patos exchange to be 2 lanes westbound. Is that an error?
There we go. Committee Member Horn, Green, I'm sorry. Yes, that's a good observation. I would start out by going right up to the roundabout itself and noting that there's 1 entry and 1 exit lane. So right at the roundabout itself, we're dealing with 1 lane in each direction. The sketch that the consultant for this project, the roundabout project, made shows it opening up to 2 lanes. From a capacity perspective, it's not needed. We have 1 lane exiting the roundabout. There's really no major intermediate access points. We have 1 lane feeding into a section. All you need is 1 lane to serve it. So it's a really good observation, but with that, it's just striping, and we have the flexibility to design that as appropriate moving forward.
So the expectation is that it will be 1 lane westbound from the circle.
Yes, to be
rotary.
consistent with the already approved bicycle master plan, yes.
Thank you. Oh, one other question, if I may. How long is a typical parking block, the corners, versus how deep will the reverse parking be?
A parallel parking space we generally assume to be about 20 feet long. That's the amount of space that people need to maneuver in. And so, for example, if we have a 100-foot stretch of curb, we assume there's 5 spaces. For the reverse angle parking, it probably needs somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 to 18 feet depth. You don't need the space on either side to exactly. In our sketch, we showed a 20-foot deep stall, I guess you'd call it. We haven't quite dialed the design in yet, but between the traffic lane, the bike lane, and buffer, and we just think we need to be generous with the space there. committee member Horn asked the question earlier about, well, how do drivers enter the space? And we think what's probably going to happen is people are going to pull over into the bike lane and then back in. And that'll leave quite a bit of room still on the outside of them for moving traffic can still go around. So there is flexibility with our dimensions, but that's roughly what we're thinking right now.
I would like to add the comment along the lines of Jennifer's comment that dovetailing existing projects and new opportunities, this is a really elegant design. You guys have taken several goals and it's a win-win for all these different projects. I think that's really worth noting. Any more questions, or shall we call the question? Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? No, the motion passes. Oh, okay. We have one abstention and the motion passes. Excuse me, we have one abstention and the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to number 5. Your mic. We're well here. We're moving on to number 5, the Active Transport Program grant application for Lower De La Vina and Haley Street.
So in this next project, we're asking you to find that the project is consistent with the Bicycle Master Plan, Pedestrian Master Plan, and the Chapala Guidelines. It's in preparation for an active transportation planning grant that we're working on for a July submittal. And Mr. Bailey will do the presentation.
So just by way of background, as Mr. Dayton mentioned, we are planning to apply for an active transportation program grant. Applications are due July 31st. And if you'll remember, February of this year, we came before the Transportation Circulation Committee to discuss the State Street Undercrossing project. So these are the two projects that we're planning to apply for in this cycle of the Active Transportation Program. It is a statewide program. It's a very competitive program, and it's to fund bicycle and pedestrian projects throughout the state. In order to make a competitive grant application, generally you have to have these elements incorporated into your project and your application. It's best if you apply for a project that benefits both bicycle and pedestrian access, as opposed to just one or the other. If your project addresses documented safety issues, so if there's a demonstrated pattern of collisions that your project will address, it's a good thing. If your project can benefit a disadvantaged community, so it's a community in the program, it's defined as having 80% or less of the median statewide household income. So the statewide median household income is about $63,000. So 80% of that's about $51,000. So if there's a census tract in the city that has a household income of $51,000 or less, it's probably going to improve the score of your project. And also, if you're applying for a project that's consistent with approved plans. And that's really why we're here this evening, is to talk about the elements of our application and talk about their consistency with already approved plans. So as Mr. Dayton mentioned, there's actually 3 elements of the project, or 3 existing plans that we're drawing off of to form this project. The Bicycle Master Plan, the bicycle component of this project, and I'm going to show it to you in a second here, was identified in the Bicycle Master Plan. So it calls for De La Vina Street between Carrillo and Haley. It's 5 blocks to be taken from 2 lanes down to 1 lane. And on Haley Street, between De La Vina and Chapala, installation of a bike lane on that block as well. So in the city, that project would look like that. It's kind of a L-shaped. Carrillo on the north end, down to Haley, and then over to Chapala, where it would feed into the existing Haley Street bike lanes. So that's one element of the project we're proposing to incorporate. It is mostly striping, so it is a relatively inexpensive element of the project. But thinking Vision Zero and thinking about some of the safety issues that we have along De La Vina Street right now, we really started thinking about, well, how can we address all the collisions that are happening on this corridor? How can we develop a project that benefits cyclists and improves pedestrian access as well? So that's the element of the bicycle master plan. Projects identified on De La Vina Street in the pedestrian master plan include curb extensions of Victoria Street, Canon Perdido Street, De La Guerra, Ortega, and Coda. And we are proposing to incorporate those intersections into our grant application as well. And I'll direct you to the map on the screen again. The red dots are projects that would be incorporated into this grant application. The Ortega Street intersection already has curb extensions on one half of the intersection, but the west side does not have them, so we would propose to complete that intersection. From a safety perspective, what I find really appealing about this project is De La Vina Street from Haley all the way up to Arriaga would then have either an enhanced crosswalk or a controlled intersection, being a traffic signal, at every intersection. So from a pedestrian or a cyclist perspective, trying to get across De La Vina would be a lot easier throughout the corridor. And then the last element that we're proposing to include in the grant application is a project that was identified in the Chapala Street guidelines. And this, as shown on the map here, would be curb extensions on the north side of the Chapala and Haley intersection. And the reason we're proposing to pull that element into the project as well is it is another location that we have an existing collision pattern. The pattern is drivers going east on Haley Street, making a left turn to go north on Chapala. There's a pattern of pedestrians getting hit in that crosswalk. So just to summarize, the planned grant application would include the Haley and De La Vina Street bike lanes, and there would be enough space to make them buffered bike lanes. It would look a lot like the bike lanes that were recently put in on Bath Street, one block over. And we're also proposing curb extensions on De La Vina at Victoria, Canon Perdido, De La Guerra, half of Ortega, Coda, and Haley and Chapala Street. I will mention that within the active transportation program, it is beneficial if your overall project cost is $1.5 million or below. The scoring is done a little bit differently, and once you jump that $1.5 million threshold, the scoring's done a little bit differently. And in order to score as many points, you actually have to put in a local match. And this is a way that the city could not put in a local match and keep local funds being used for maintenance projects instead of other projects. So we haven't finished all of our cost estimations yet, so there is a possibility that one or two of the locations might have to be removed in order to keep us below that 1.5 million, but that's something we'll be working out in the coming weeks. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I put the map of the proposed grant application up on the screen for your review.
Hi. I just wondered, because of past history of curb extensions causing a lot of problems for bicyclists and sometimes for cars turning corners and running into the sidewalk, can you address that and just say what is the current state of curb extensions as far as how easy it is or hard it would be for bike riders to have good access to the street?
Committee Member Horn, that's a great question. We have recent experience on De La Vina Street with a pretty successful curb extension project at Figueroa Street. Our approach to that project was we didn't make the curb extensions quite as aggressive into the street. You still have all the benefits of improved sight lines, reduced pedestrian exposure because they're not in the street as often. But we were really careful with the design. We really went movement by movement the drivers could make, going around the intersection to and from, all possibilities, and just making sure the turning radiuses were well done. So I'd really point to that intersection as an example of what the rest of the corridor could look like. As far as cyclists go, cyclists riding safely should be in the lane and not hugging the curb. I totally understand what you're saying, that a curb extension could force a cyclist out into the street. But if they're riding in the street, they're already doing that in and out of parked cars. And really, from a safety perspective, they should just be going straight. And the curb extension's not introducing an element of deflection that isn't already there with parked cars. So it's not really a big issue from our perspective. In the past, we've been a little more sensitive to where we propose curb extensions. Vision Zero has really changed our mindset with this. And in the past, I've always thought Victoria Street would be a good intersection to treat the same as Figueroa Street, but especially some of the intersections getting down to De La Guerra, Ortega, Coda, felt that there might be some opposition in the public, as far as there is some members of the public that don't like curb extensions. But Vision Zero has really changed the way we're thinking about things. And we have an example of a curb extension project at Figueroa Street that's very successful. It's working. People aren't running into curbs, and pedestrians are still provided with a much safer facility. So with Vision Zero, the way we're thinking now is, we really have a responsibility to do this. There's collisions happening there, and it's really our responsibility not to worry about some of the negative comments. It's our responsibility to design a really good project that addresses people's comments. But as far as backing away from making a street safer, we really have a responsibility to do that.
Thank you.
I just had a question of, in knowing and thinking that Figueroa is complete. Is that what that open red circle means, that you wouldn't be doing anything at Figueroa, right?
It's already there.
Right. I'm sorry. I didn't have a what's the word I'm looking for? Key. Thank you. On here, but yes, Figueroa just is supposed to indicate that that's complete.
Gotcha.
I'm appreciating that showing the existing signals on De La Vina makes sense, but it is a little off-putting because it's not part of the plan. I mean, it's there, it's done. It's not new work, and most of the red dots, I think, are new work.
Committee Member Green, yes, that's correct. The purpose of the signals being illustrated on here, along with the circle at Figueroa Street, is just to illustrate that De La Vina between Haley Street all the way up to Arriaga will have much better crossings for pedestrians. So De La Vina Street, it's a principal arterial street that parallels our downtown. It's used as a bypass to downtown by a lot of people. And it really acts as a barrier between the west downtown neighborhood and downtown itself. So this would just really facilitate movements, and it's just to not illustrate that it's part of the project, just how it fits into the big picture.
But
the other thing that people in Sacramento or wherever, may not know that De La Vina is a one-way street.
Committee Member Green, our application goes into a lot of detail. It's hundreds of pages long. It takes a lot of time to put together. So those details are included in the grant application. We're trying to condense everything and abbreviate it for you this evening.
Well, I just wanted to comment that SOLA is going to be brought online as a signal in 21-22. So actually, the signals that are listed on this map don't all exist currently. And it'll be a big benefit as each of these signals is. And Arriaga just came online, a couple of years ago. So it helps create access for pedestrians and for cyclists. And what with the bike lane coming onto SOLA, that signal will play an important role.
Are there any other questions before we have our public comment? Okay, Mr. Remus. Did I say it wrong? Remus. Welcome back.
Good evening, Barry Remus again, Coast, as you know. So I could not have said this any better than Mr. Bailey has with respect to the Vision Zero elements, and Coast really appreciates how the city is taking the ball and running with it when it comes to applying the tenets of Vision Zero again. So we're in full support of this project, and there's really not too much more to say about that. We hope that you'll concur and see the benefit that this will bring to the full community again, and to go down to one lane on De La Vina is another one of those pills to swallow. But again, this is more about what we're talking about here is putting the application together for the grant to win the funding for that. But again, this is also to see that this has been something that was agreed upon in the original Bike Master Plan update. So we're very encouraged by the augmentation of this to also include the pedestrian safety elements of this. Really takes it to that fully holistic Vision Zero attitude with the design of this, and we commend the city for doing that. So again, we hope that you'll agree and give your approval for this grant application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would it be in order for me to state a potential motion that we could then discuss?
Yeah, and there is a motion. There's a motion for you crafted. If you
Yeah,
like.
I kind of shortened it a little. I would like to propose that the active that we make a motion to say that our evaluation is that the active transportation program grant application for Lower De La Vina and Haley Street is consistent with the bicycle master plan, the pedestrian master plan, and the Chapala Street guidelines.
So moved.
So that's
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I just had one thing, and I'm when you said it's competitive, the ATP program is competitive. If you guys get this, I'm really gonna start to wonder, because we happen to get everything we apply for from this program, and it's a lot to be proud of. And I know that you even have kind of a road show to show other jurisdictions how to score their own projects and figure it out, which I appreciate. Though I hope they don't totally figure it out right away, so that we can continue to reap the benefits. But it's really a testament to I know it took a long time to get our bicycle master plan together, but now that we have it, I feel like we're checking, and now that we have Measure C also, we're checking the boxes and getting, they're starting to connect, right? SOLA, we can see that can connect to this, and we're starting to fill gaps in the network like we said we would. So I'm proud of this, that we're moving forward, and I know that this money won't come for a while, this project wouldn't be programmed for a bit. But I just want to commend staff and folks who push for this and have worked on it for a long time. But got a lot to be proud of, even just putting the application together, whether you get the money or not. So I hope that it continues to be not so competitive for us because of how you've figured out how to do these applications so well.
I concur, and I also want to commend the staff for the concentration on Vision Zero and pedestrian and safety for all individuals. I think that's outstanding. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Vision Zero has, in fact, changed our discussions quite a bit, surprisingly so. I think as we have these conversations about projects, we were all taught in school, this is what we were taught, that a certain amount of collisions are expected to happen. That's what we were taught. And so we have been dutifully doing our jobs with that understanding. But when you look at it through the lens of Vision Zero, it really changed things. And it's going to change the conversation, because we're going to be increasingly coming and saying, well, if we do this, then we expect collisions to reoccur. So we're not. And then it's not as much a community discussion as it is, here's what's going to work. So it's kind of something to be thinking about. It changes the narrative a little bit with the community. But then referring to your comments on the active transportation planning grants that we've been getting, we do have an all-star team, and we do feel like a lot of agencies don't have the bandwidth to understand the process. So when we've done our workshops, we've been called upon to teach other people how we do it, and we've decidedly not given away the secret sauce by any means. But what we found is really just a lack of fundamental understanding about the way that the process works. It's very clear that, as we did during the Bicycle Master Plan, that you can score your own projects. So we get questions like, well, do you think this project is good? And that's a sign that they don't understand. Just score the project and then you'll know. And so hopefully we do continue to be competitive, and hopefully another aspect of this is the active transportation planning grant process has been funded additionally through SB 1 that was passed by the state legislature, and that is being proposed to be repealed. It'll be a ballot measure in November, and just to say it, thinking about as this comes forward and as the community decides, at least our community, how they're going to vote, how it does affect us is particularly for the $15 million project that we just received in Las Positas and Modoc, which is a Class 1 facility. That project we wouldn't get if the gas tax was repealed. 101 obviously also is an SB 1 project and would also be something that would be affected by a repeal. And then the Cycle 4, which we're applying for now, has a certain amount of additional funding because of SB 1. So the gas tax in November, that'll be before the voters, will have an impact on how we move forward in the future with freeway and alternative mode projects.
Well, I think we can call the question. Oh, so I'm sorry, Susan.
I just wanted to say that another thing that we learned growing up and as adults is that people always say safety first. They always say that, but they don't know what that means, and they don't follow that, really. And this is the first time I've really seen this being implemented in a serious way, and I just really appreciate it. So, thank you.
Since Susan made a comment, I will make one more comment before. It might be the last one, I'm not sure. But I think another thing we've, quote, grown up with, growing up in the greater Los Angeles area myself, is everybody has to get everywhere faster. And we're just changing that paradigm, which is wonderful, because I don't want to have to be arguing with folks who are saying, well, it takes me 5 minutes longer to get from here to there. You're getting there safer. You're getting there more calmly. You don't need to have every road be a speedway. we've got to turn that around. So I think the Vision Zero is a really good motivator to just talk to the speed demons, the faster folks. So I like that a lot. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're ready to vote on our motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Howard?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Oh, yes, you did. I apologize. Well, it's unanimous, and if you need, if the language is adequate, I think we want to make a strong statement that our observation is that the grant application is consistent with all three of the plans. However, that can be stated very clearly. Okay? That's our observation and recommendation. Thank you very much. I think we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.